so many years. But we're about to see a short video, and then we'll get back to the panel.
J'ai perdu mon stylo en route.
A short video of the session will now be played on the screen.
In an era of growing geopolitical tensions and economic divisions, collaboration between think tanks from the North and South has emerged as a crucial mechanism to enhance global governance. By engaging in joint research, knowledge exchange, and policy development, think tanks have the potential to craft solutions that address pressing issues like climate change, international security, and technological transitions while respecting diverse regional realities, demonstrating how collective expertise can shape globally relevant and locally tailored strategies. How can think tanks from different regions overcome the challenges of differing political and economic priorities to form effective partnerships? How can collaboration between think tanks improve the inclusivity and effectiveness of policy solutions for pressing global issues? What critical factors ensure the sustainability and long-term success of partnerships between think tanks from different regions?
A little bit later in the program. But before we start with the panelists, I want to get a sense from you about how much you know about the Atlantic Initiative. And first of all, we have a vote for you to, I was going to ask for a show of hands, but that is so 20th century. So we'll do for the 21st century. You all have your iPhones and other equipment with you. If you can please answer the question. We'll do a vote. How much you know about the Atlantic Initiative, and that should be going up on the screen shortly. Oh, you're already voting. Great. So it gives us a sense of how much work we have ahead of us, depending on what you tell us. Good. There's some folks who don't know anything at all about it, a little and a lot. Well, as the vote is coming in, why don't we start, Ambassador, with you? Good to see you again.
I missed you 3 times. We missed each other in Washington, and now I find you here smiling. So we still have our commitment, right?
100%.
Okay.
So I'll see you in D.C.
DC.
But let's start, though, talking about the initiative. Why don't you give us some sense of exactly what His Majesty was trying to do by announcing this initiative? And if you can for some of our members of the audience who don't know anything about the initiative at all, give us, explain what's the initiative about.
Yeah, before answering your question, I'd like to remind you, last year we were in the same panel. It was the starting of this initiative. And maybe I was waiting for you to ask me what has changed since 1 year. But I think we were able to establish a mindset of this initiative, not only here in Morocco, but also worldwide, in the US, in the UN, and elsewhere. Today, the Atlantic Initiative of His Majesty, it's a reality, it's an ambition, a commitment to work for the stability of the region. Not only stability of the region, but also creation of wealth, job creation. It is an integrated process that combines strategy for Africa. It is an initiative for Africa, to Africans, in order to create this zone or this space of these corridors of peace and stability. Interconnected with our neighbors in the north, and we have a colleague from Portugal, from the European Union. The interconnection with Europe is there. We know that Europe has a project, the Global Gateway, but it's not the same. Our project, the initiative of His Majesty, is designed for Africa by Africans. And what is important is that we need, and this is, I think, the essence of the initiative, to do our own homework internally. It is about what? It is about connection, energy connection, transport, agriculture, connecting the regions to fate stability. And also not only connecting to each other in order to encourage the regional integration scheme, but also to allow countries which have no access to the sea to have access to the sea. Because access to Atlantic means access to trade, is access to prosperity, and access for job creation. So for us, as Africans, when we are doing our own homework to create all these corridors from the Strait of Gibraltar to Cape Town in South Africa. This is the objective of His Majesty. And we, of course, we're going to talk about the tools we are using, the projects, gas pipeline, transport corridors, energy, all these elements, and harbors, of course. We have the example of the Mediterranean with Tangier Mediterranean port, but today we have the Dakhla, which will be a major outcome for regional integration. Unfortunately, we are lacking, and we have to recognize our difficulties. The regional integration schemes are not working. I'm not going to talk about the Maghreb, which is, but even at the level of ECOWAS and SADC and so on, some work has to be done. And for this reason, John, I will stop here. We need the vision. We have King Mohammed VI. We need the tools, and we have the tools. We are implementing these tools. It will take some time, and we need the commitment to our ambition.
Well, thanks for stopping before I stop you.
Okay.
So that's good. I want to get to Amina, and the ambassador set it up really nicely for you, in fact, to talk to drill in, actually. That's not exactly what I meant, but it's actually what you do.
Yeah.
But on your piece of the initiative, $25 billion, that's quite a lot of money. Talk about this project.
Vous allez me permettre de parler en français. On va faire un peu honneur à la langue de Shakespeare, de notre partenaire français.
Our French partners. Before I can talk about the project per se, I would like to recall everyone that this project is part of a vision and a development of the South-South oriented between African countries. Ever since the accession of His Majesty on the Alawi throne, we have had a partnership-oriented policy vis-à-vis the African country that has been reflected in various projects in many fields as phosphates, agriculture, industry, energy, etc. And now the project of the gas pipeline has come in because it was initiated in 2016 before we enter into the launch of studies in 2017 formally to thrust a new dynamic that goes over and above the bilateral relationships with Morocco and its brethren countries from Africa to have a regional integration project, a catalyst project for the growth in this region because it bears on 13 Atlantic bordering countries and the 3 landlocked countries that are also initiative. This project I'm going to entertain right now is part of this overall vision, which is today topped by this Royal Atlantic Initiative, which is extremely important and which goes over and above bilateral relations, over and above an integrating project between 13 countries, but really to create prosperity, security, and growth in a continent which is underdeveloped as yet. Partly, and which is not fully integrated because Africa has only 3% of integration. And as you know, without integration, we will not be able to know and have sustainable integration.
Now, this project that stems from the vision of His Majesty and President Buhari has the ambition to scale up access to energy. As I said, we are in a region of over 400 million inhabitants. The electrification rate is under 40%. Of connection. It will contribute to the acceleration of the industrialization of these countries. These countries all have and enjoy natural resources and minerals that are absolutely primordial for the energy transition in the planet. It will create jobs and wealth, and through the job creation, which is an extremely important thing, an item from the human aspect and security aspects, the more wealth we will create in the region, the more stabilized will be our youth, and we will overcome the challenge of illegal migration of our neighboring continent, Europe. So this project has this regional scope and dimension that goes far beyond an infrastructure project or energy access project. This is indeed a project whose aim is to grow and build that growth and sustainable development that we aspire. It will include 13 Atlantic countries, and we have storylines to connect the Sahel landlocked countries. This project is over $25 billion. It may be a heavy budget, but it will be phasing out with very well-assessed phases with an extension project we have going on with Nigeria to extend it towards Côte d'Ivoire, Mauritania, Morocco, and Senegal, and the connection between Morocco and Europe and the central connection between Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal. So this project is also a very structuring project in the whole dynamic of the relationship between Europe and Africa, and will hopefully contribute to further exportation and export promotion and diversification of energy resources of the EU. And of course, despite all the efforts, Europe will still be consuming gas by 2050, but hopefully we will drop that energy source, and gas can contribute to more diversity for safety and security and stability in Europe. So this is a very structuring, integrating project that will bring economic development for the region.
In talking about economic development for the region, I want to talk to you in terms of the part of the initiative that you've been spending a lot of time with, has to do with fisheries, the blue economy. Talk about that in terms of how it benefits you.
Merci bien, Anthony, mais je vais changer pour l'anglais. Parce qu'on ne peut pas parler le portugnol, et pour ça, c'est une version qui mélange le portugais avec l'espagnol, et pour ça, I'm going to speak in English. So, sorry, Anthony.
Safe for you.
It's only to keep your attention anyway, that's always important. I'm coming from the Atlantic Center, and it is another initiative, and I don't go for assessing who knows about the Atlantic Center. And the Atlantic Center is mainly 24 countries from the Atlantic Basin, coming from South America, Africa, Europe, and North America. We find together in the middle of this place in the Policy Center last year, when I was joined with Tariq from the African Atlantic States Process, Jessica Le Pen from the American Partnership Cooperation Initiative. And we realized that we have a lot in common regarding the African Atlantic States Process. Why? And that is, I think, the most important, because we talk about, and first of all, we need to talk about development and sustainability of the development. And we talk here about economy, the integration, but we talk about ports, trade, and the importance of the blue economy and the opportunity to blue economy for the countries of the Atlantic Basin. And we forgot sometimes to look for digital connectivity. How important digital connectivity is in this moment for the economies, and how can that create more diversity in this space. So I think the South have a great opportunity regarding digital connectivity, and how important is that? So, turning the page of development and sustainability, we need to talk about the dark side of the back page. It's the security. And the security, I talk in broad terms. I talk about security and safety, of course, but I talk about climate change. We already talk a lot about this. We talk about pollution. We talk about fishing. We talk about terrorism, about conflicts. And we see how this is so transnational, so interdependent, and so complex in terms of international law. And I think this is the way where the Atlantic Center and the African Atlantic States Process Initiative go together. And then because if you remember this strategic point of view that really well designed from the initiative of Morocco, that is, and I will change the order, and I will start by blue economy, the conservation and stabilization of the environment, and then political and security aspects, because we need that for achieve the others. And we are talking a pipeline that will cross the Atlantic. And the issues, and I normally say during the morning we talk about identity, common values, but we have this kind of security risks and threats in the Atlantic that are common to all the Atlantic basin, because we are all touched by climate change, we are all touched by IU fishing, we are all touched by transnational crime, and transnational is that. They have no boundaries, they have no things. And so there is here a merge between these two initiatives and other ones, and that is the important to work in the complementary way, to look where we can fulfill the gaps, and I think this is the good moment to address this in this place. Thank you.
Great. I want to pick up on what Nuno said, Mr. Ambassador, in terms of looking at the other countries that are really engaged in this region. But before I do, though, we've had the first round of questions and comments, and I wanted to ask the audience if now you can engage to talk about the initiative. And I wanted to know, what word would you use to describe the initiative? We can do a word cloud. Some of you may want to say pie in the sky, but actually those are 3 words. But if there are any words that you think would characterize what we have talked about, it would be good to hear what your thoughts are so far.
Can I join one? Ownership.
Sure. What was the
ownership?
What? Okay. And ambitious. That's. I've heard that before. That sounds good. While the audience, Mr. Ambassador, is voting on the different word clouds, let's talk about the fact that this initiative is really coming in the middle of an area that's really, we're seeing a lot of initiatives. We've got initiatives from Europe. We've got initiatives from the United States. President Biden was just in the region, brought $600 million for a railroad, among other things, in the southern part of the continent. But and Europe, of course, is promising $150 billion.
Yeah.
Just talk about how this fits in. Is it complementary? Or is it something that's at odds with what's going on? Talk about how the initiative fits into what we see.
It is all about complementarity, equality, shared responsibility, and mutual respect. And these are the principles of His Majesty's initiative. We are not going to replace any other instrument or tool on the region. We are happy with the Global Gateway, but we are also happy with the U.S. initiative. I had the occasion with.
I wonder if I can ask you can keep the words up, because those are interesting words. If you can keep those up at least through the end of this round of questioning. I'd like everyone to see what words folks are using. Thank you. I'm sorry, you were saying, Mr. President.
So it is all about complementarity. Mm-hmm. We don't want to replace any existing mechanism or tools or any other approach. We seek for the coherence between all the initiatives. I had the chance to work with Ambassador J.C. Lappen, who was the, I don't know, now with this new administration, if the Atlantic will be still be a priority in the U.S. administration. But at least we work together with J.C. Lappen and with the State Department. It is different initiative because this other initiative, the American initiative, is initiative which is dealing with maritime security and scientific. Our is more strategic because we need to connect our continent, benefiting from the strength of each other. So this, I think, it's not a problem. We can live with this. Europe has a new neighborhood policy for the Mediterranean. We have this EU-Africa strategy. But we need also to work in coherence with our own tools. African Free Trade Agreement, African Union, ECOWAS, SADC, and so on. So we have our instrument, and they're not in contradiction. It is based on complementarity. This is the vision of His Majesty. Of course, it is a step-by-step approach, trying to transform the economy. It's important because at the end of the day, what is important for us as Africans is to create jobs and to respond to the ambitions of young Africans, women and boys. This is and to be able to create stability, you need at the same time, I think this is my last point, to fight insecurity and instability. You see, the case lately in Syria, people thought that Daesh and ISIS was finished, but they're still somewhere. So this is the Sahel represent for us. Linking, I'm not saying landlocked, linking the Sahel countries to the sea and to trade. And this, I think, it's a good tool in order to find and deconstruct all the jihadist narrative. Because the security is there. Security concern is there. But we need to fight against it through economic development, job creation, and through these concrete projects that brings stability and creates wealth for the continent. And our continent, and this is for the US, should be a priority for the US administration. We have been repeating this for a long time, because it's the country of the future, the continent of the future, the continent which is growing and contains a lot of possibility. When you go to the State Department or the White House, they talk to you about what? Critical minerals. Where are they? In Africa. So that's why when we talk to our partners in the US, we say that Africa should be there. And that's why we're happy this year. Blinken went to the Lubido Corridor, Angola, and the same thing, President Biden.
I was going to ask you a question, a follow-up on that to ask Amina, and I'd like her to come in on this actually. The whole idea about in order for this initiative to be successful on the continent outside of Morocco, it has to be successful in Morocco.
Yes.
Moroccans have to buy in to this and actually see that they're benefiting from this. Do you see that happening?
Yes.
Yeah. In
you
what ways?
just have to see the corridor from Dakhla, the port of Dakhla, to Mauritania, to Mali, the exchange of goods, the transport. This gives you a signal that we have to move south. And Morocco is looking south. In each story, Morocco was always looking south. Of course, we have the partner in the north. We don't ignore that, but these two initiatives are complementary. I see one colleague from the Foreign Ministry. She was working with me, but now she's in Africa, but before she was working in the EU. So we always had this discussion. We look north and we look south. And this is the Moroccan mindset.
And we want to pick up on something that you mentioned earlier, Amina, about the Sahel, the region, and how this project can really benefit. In some cases, I think Carnegie Endowment at one point said it's potentially a way that can help not only bring peace to the region, but also economically benefit the region. Could you talk about that, please?
Alors, l'initiative atlantique lancée par Sa Majesté comporte plusieurs piliers. Le premier,
the Atlantic Initiative that is steered. The Atlantic Initiative steered by His Majesty includes several parts. So Dakhla Infrastructure Port will be the gateway to sub-Saharan southern countries. Through this Dakhla major port, you will have a range of infrastructure and hydrogen, a green hydrogen project, ammonia, agriculture, fisheries, tourism. And in addition to this, Morocco is providing this sub-Saharan and Sahel countries infrastructure sharing and will contribute to the development and construction of maritime, land, and air corridors to ensure an enhancement and improvement of all infrastructures in this country. So from this economic development spirit and approach, in maritime, land, and air will allow these countries to have an opening through the Atlantic zones and create industrial zones, logistics zones, allowing these countries to boost their economies and their industrial sectors. And with this position, we're opening all Sahel countries to a market of over 1 million market inhabitants, with all the signing of agreements, of free trade agreements that Morocco has signed with the EU, with the United States, and all other countries. So there's a very, very important dynamic and an integrated market with over 120 million inhabitants. This is the fourth economic power of Africa, and this gives a true weight to all attractiveness of foreign investment. And Morocco has always been open on partnership, on investment promotion and industrial promotion. And all these projects will be carried out in partnership with partner countries and all leading institutions that Morocco has been used to working and partnering with, like we've done over the last decades. Everyone has been able to witness the economic growth and momentum that Morocco has gained has been extraordinary in terms of infrastructure development, interconnections. We are the only country that is connected by an electric line and gas line and pipeline with Europe, with the Eastern countries. We're strengthening our electric grids with Portugal, and we are now working in the framework of the pipeline Morocco, Nigeria development, and also developing and boosting our cooperation with Mauritania and sub-Saharan countries. And believe me, Morocco will be a transition corridor for electric sector, for gas, and for the economy in general.
The view from Europe. What is the view, from as best you can tell, in Europe about this initiative? And is it something, again, I want to pick up a little bit on the question we were talking about with what the U.S. is doing, complementary for Europe as well?
I think I think the good example is the memorandum that we signed with the initiatives. And we, the 24, now 24, because Mauritania joined us last week, we really achieved that this memorandum, achieved the increase of the relation with the Moroccan initiative is really important. Regarding Europe, I can say we have 7 countries, Atlantic countries of Europe, in the Atlantic Center. So we are talking about, of course, Portugal, and I take my cap of Atlantic Center. I have my cap of Portugal, of course, but we have Portugal, we have Spain, we have UK, we have Germany, we have France. We have Netherlands, we have Denmark, and we are still growing the interest of European countries on the initiative. So I think that is also important. Then we have the EU, European Union. And the European Union, as well known by everybody, have this mission, the global gateway, but also the initiative to support the capacity building. It increased the security on the Atlantic region. And that, I think, it's a head value that we are creating. But anyway, if you allowed me, the recent cybersecurity index call all of us to cooperate, because they understand. We talk here in the last conversation, if I learned well, about technology, how important in this project the technology, and how we need to cooperate also on this space. So, once again, very important. The other one is the development of knowledge, because if we don't know, we don't change. We cannot change, and that could bring another way to change things. It's to support the political will, the ownership of the member states of the initiative to be here, be present. And when we talk not about 23 countries from the West Africa, we are talking 23 more 24. Well, 13 are the West Africa, but we are talking about Brazil. We are talking about Uruguay. We are talking about Colombia. And probably in the near future, why not Argentina? And we are talking about the United States too. So all together on this. And when we talk about digital convergence, once again, the last index say we need to have resilience. And for that, we need to cooperate. So it's quite difficult not to do it. And if we can do and look for these common issues together, I think it will be great. And for sure, European Union, but the other initiatives are really involved. And we hope, and sorry to say that, but we are open in clear speaking, to see ZOPACAS also involved in this memorandum of understanding between the African Atlantic States process, ZOPACAS in Atlantic Center. Why not? Why not? Because we have the same driven, the same challenge for the Atlantic, for sure.
No, I want to tell the audience that I'll be coming to you for questions here in just a few minutes. So have your questions ready. And as I said, of course, this actually is your show. I'm going to ask one question of the ambassador, and then I'm going to open it up for you. Actually, I have two questions, but let's ask one. The first one. The king has given a major speech on this to show that his commitment, but how engaged do you think he needs to be for this initiative to be successful?
Well, he's engaged completely, not only as Moroccans, but with the partners. Today, the initiative has been discussed at the UN, at the European Union level. We have a great support from our partners. Because why? Because we are thinking about a new model based on ownership that connects the countries and the continents and that creates stability. You see, I don't want to name countries, but there is some failures in the Sahel. But we have these countries of the Sahel meeting each other. The gas pipeline, like Amina was saying, is creating again stability. It's promoting regional integration scheme. It's very important, and creating jobs. And this is what we need. Even Europe today has put in its agenda the issue of the Atlantic. Now go ahead with the second question. I know
the second question has to do, actually, you started talking about it earlier, and I wanted to get more specificity from you about with this new administration that's coming in, what's your thinking, and the people you're talking to in Washington, what are you anticipating that they're going to be doing as it relates to Africa?
Okay, now we are waiting for the new government and even the new team of President Trump has not been, again, comforted by the Senate. But we have to wait. But we can see that maybe there will be a change in priorities. We have to wait to see what's going to happen. But from an African perspective, we need the US to be on board with us, with the tools. For Morocco, we have a free trade agreement. This year, we have celebrated the 20th anniversary of the FTA. We also celebrated the 20th anniversary of the African Lion. We work on security. We are the first country to recognize the independence of the US. And because people don't know that, of the Atlantic, we have the oldest non-broken treaty with the US. Because at that time, and Amina was talking about this later on when we were in the green room, because of the Atlantic and to protect the American ship to come to the Atlantic, we signed this treaty with the US. So for us, US is a priority in our foreign policy, and also the US sees Morocco as a non-NATO major ally. Again, we have the Atlantic here. So we will continue to do so, and we hope that Africa will be a priority for the US new administration.
Terrific. Thank you, Ambassador. Let's get the audience engaged. I think our first question is here. Is there a microphone? Please, thank you. Okay, there we go. Great. Do you mind if you can stand up and tell us who you are, even though I think most of the folks in the room know who you are. But if you can just and then we'll ask your question.
Marcus Freitas from the Policy Center. My question is for Nuno, right?
No.
It's not. If we can get, is it? Okay.
All right.
No?
It's still not working. Maybe we'll get the other microphone. There's one to your left. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, hello. Marcus Freitas from the Policy Center. My question is for Nuno, right? I mentioned today in the morning, I was quite surprised to see the results of the last APEC meeting, which I thought was very interesting to see the results and how positive the whole environment was. Why don't we have something similar in the Atlantic? And why do we not have these conditions? And how could Morocco, in a way, perhaps lead this process? Thank you.
No?
Well,
Please.
Obrigado, Marco.
Yes, you can speak.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah? Marco, obrigado. Obrigado. Well, why not? I think it's the right answer is yes, we can. Oh, I don't have.
Well, while they fix the mic, why don't we get another question and you'll come back, okay? You want
Bonjour.
to announce who you are?
Oui, professeur Baoumar. Donc, je suis professeur au Centre diplomatique et stratégique de Paris, expert associé à Sciences Po Bordeaux et à l'UQAM du Québec, Canada. Je voudrais très rapidement vous poser une question et après apporter une clarification sur certaines données qui ont été avancées ce matin. La première question, c'est celle de l'envergure géostratégique par l'effet d'évitement. Nous savons très bien qu'aujourd'hui, la mer Rouge constitue dans le trafic mondial un enjeu chaotique du commerce maritime et que plus de environ 90% de ce commerce passe par les mers. Et le détroit, le canal de Suez joue un rôle fondamental. Et donc la façade atlantique, à travers le contournement par l'Afrique, par comment on appelle ça, le Cap de Bonne-Espérance, crée une dynamique qui donne un tonus plus fondamental à la façade atlantique africaine. Mais se pose aussi à ces États la problématique de la capacité des infrastructures, de modernisation, de mise à niveau par rapport à la quantité des flux. Donc, quelle pourrait être une solution peut-être envisageable? Et la précision que j'aimerais apporter, et là je parle en tant qu'expert de l'Union africaine, qui a organisé, a participé à des élections et qui a suivi le processus électoral au Ghana. Je crois que notre collègue s'est trompé de bonne foi, car le taux de participation au Ghana était de 60,9%. Sur 18 774 159 inscrits, on a eu droit à un vote effectif à travers les résultats réels, par les résultats réels, de 11 430 531 votants. Donc on est à 60,9%. Et le lapsus, je le comprends, parce qu'on est autour d'environ 40% de taux d'abstention. Et je crois qu'elle a dû oublier le zéro du 40% de taux d'abstention à travers la fatigue, tout simplement. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Can you, we'll come around, but can you want to respond?
I can say just one word about you are right about the importance of the maritime connections, very important. And you forget also another point when you make the comparison with the Gulf of Aden. There is also this security and piracy also threat in the Gulf of Guinea. That we have to be, but for us, the project of Dakhla port and the maritime connection is to transform this reality into job creation and into projects that can serve. 2 days ago, there's something, we have inaugurated a maritime line from Senegal to Dakhla and to Agadir. And this will help us in 24 or I think 25 hours to transport all the goods. This is what we need. We need more through all the Atlantic coast. This is what I think understand what was the purpose of your question.
Terrific. Can we, please, do you mind if you could stand?
Merci. Abdelhak je suis Senior Fellow au Policy Center.
Merci. I'm a Senior Fellow at the Policy Center. In terms of the freeing countries of the landlocked challenges, many African countries and countries from the Sahel will port, the one of Dakar, as well as the Dakhla port. Could we not reassure states of the Sahel of our intentions and their capacity to diversify their maritime routes in order to help with the issue of landlocked countries and the limitations provided by these geographical conditions. Could we not reassure these states that Morocco is not aiming at being a relentless competitor, but to become a...
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay.
I don't know. You can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I have three questions here in the hand, but anyway, I will start with this one, and then I leave to Ambassador and to you to answer to this regarding the Sahel. But we cannot forget what is written in international law, namely in the United Nations Convention for Law of the Sea, namely in the, if I remember, in the Article 124 regarding transit countries. And this is one of the international law process to allow the countries that are landlocked to access to the sea. Now we have a new challenge that I already touched, that is the access to the digital convergence and to the connections. And that could create, as I already say, more asymmetries or more diversity, if I can say. And that is another challenge that will arrive. It's the access to the ports, access to the roads, access to the mobility. But now we have a new challenge, is the technology that's put to us this challenge. For instance, when we see how we can access to internet, we look for in the global way, and we see some gaps arriving in Africa. And how can we talk about artificial intelligence, for instance, when we need a huge high of quality data to learn machines? How can we assess this? And that will be the challenge of, it's already a challenge, but will be the challenge. But regarding and then, yes, I know that the crisis in the Bab el-Mandeb, in the Red Sea, push a lot to Africa and say about piracy, but a lot of things have been done during the 10 years of the architecture of Yaoundé, and then bring the coastal states more conscious of these problems of security, more capacity to achieve and to lead with this challenge. And that's a good example how a community, a regional community, focus on one issue that was maritime security in both terms, could be all the people together at the table and doing things and achieve slowly, as I usually say, a lot of space for improvement. That China and Africa have done in the last some. Yeah.
The Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation.
Yes.
And that is not, and I think, Ambassador, if you address that.
I would like to respond to my colleague Abdelhak Bessou, to tell him it is all about building bridges between the countries of the region. And we have a diplomatic approach toward the countries of Sahel. We have met, I think, 3 times for the last 2 years in Marrakesh, in New York, Sami, I think in New York. Of course, they are online with this initiative. We have a political dialogue. It is, for us, it is building networks in the region. We don't see competition. Where people see competition, we see complementarity, and I think this is a complementary and what else? The word is not coming here. But anyhow, there is a strong commitment to work together. We're not replacing any tools that works well. I said it at the beginning. The tools that are working, the infrastructure, but we need more infrastructure for Africa to be able to link these countries in the best conditions to the sea than access to trade. Now about China, President of China, India, I think we need to do our own homework. And I talked to my colleagues in the US when they talk about China, they say you forget about Africa. Now you should give priority to Africa. La nature a horreur du vide, you know. So China were investing and so on. Yeah. So today I think we need Americans to be on board. We need our European partners also to accompany the priorities of the Africans, because we have our sovereign priorities in economic development. We don't want any help. We want us to work together in a partnership.
Great, thank you, Ambassador. We have a question here. Also, I wanted to know if there's anyone from China or the U.S. in the audience. Would love to get you engaged in the conversation as well. Please, if you mind getting up so that everyone can see.
Thank you very much. En fait, je suis conforté dans la question que je voulais poser par l'intervention de M. Bassou. Effectivement, il peut y avoir un certain nombre de préoccupations, d'interrogations. Ça dépend de l'approche.
Different questions, indeed. It really is dependent on our approach. While listening to these discussions, which were very interesting and fruitful, I would like to emphasize one point. We have spoken on the gas pipeline, and other matters, but we have not mentioned that these initiatives exist because of His Majesty's commitment, something that was announced in his speech, the Rabat process for the Atlantic nations, as well as the initiative to enable the Sahel nations access to the Atlantic Ocean. Obviously, there has been the gas pipeline project that has been started, and there is a overarching vision here and a real commitment at the highest level. The second element is data, and the 13 countries that are involved in the gas pipeline project, as well as the 3 additional countries connected to this project. There are 23 neighboring countries which have access to the sea engaged in the Rabat process. In total, we have 27 African nations involved, about half of the African continent, representing 60% of the African population and about 3/4 of the continent's GDP. What we are looking at is a territory which was up to now very strategic but unexploited. And I say this carefully, since the launch of the African organization, the African Union, we have not had a continental approach or continental initiative. There is a disconnect in terms of the geographical constraints that we deal with. In the southern part of the Atlantic, we have a reinforcement between dialogue and cooperation on the economic level. The second issue that we have and where we lack is our approach to development. We are not waiting to see in order to develop. We start our approach and our projects with development in mind. Now, the third point would be the organizational methods. Up to now, we had top-down approaches. Now we have a different approach, one that is rooted in grassroots. As Madame Ben Khadra has noted, we have different initiatives at the regional and sub-regional level, enabling cooperation at various levels and fostering greater communication or cooperation. It is important for me, and here is my question briefly to our Portuguese colleague. Where does Europe and the North, how does it position itself in terms of its interests across Africa? What can the EU do in order to accompany and provide support to establish these initiatives and implement them.
I'm very happy because he was in my team 20 years ago.
There's a question back. If the young lady with the microphone, there's a question way in the back. If you can.
Very good question for you. For
I don't forget the question. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we talk. I don't talk about the European Union, but we talk about the Atlantic Center. But I think we cannot look in the good way because we want Europe of course a stable and developing area, and that is the most important. And I think this initiative will bring that. Will bring it. So what can I say? That's great. I think. Well, probably something in the
or
room.
Maybe
think in the other in the
maybe
different way.
I would like to add.
And
is there enough ambition from our partners of Europe to accompany this initiative? Because we have the experience of the EU-Africa summit. I've been attending for it. So it was a lot of wishful thinking, but nothing in the ground. And what Sami was saying is that we need some concrete action and cooperation in order to move forward.
Yeah.
Well, we have a U.S. perspective from back here, and then we'll go to the gentleman on the other side. Please.
Thank you. My name is Gaudat Bahgat. I work for Department of Defense, National Defense University. United States does not, for sure I'm not speaking on behalf of United States government. I'm speaking only for myself. United States does not see China, competition between US and China is not zero-sum game. China is major trade partner of United States. The largest foreign student community in US is from China, and there is a lot of interdependency between United States and China. It is absolutely not new Cold War. It is not the same like United States and Soviet Union. And earlier, when we talked about different topics, probably the elephant in the room is the new administration in Washington will impact many of the issues we will discuss here in Rabat in the next 3 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a question. Actually, we'll go there. It's another perspective from the U.S. From Professor Tantrum, please.
Michael Tantrum from the Middle East Institute, Washington, D.C. First of all, I totally endorse this vision and this picture presented by Her Excellency former Energy Minister bin Khadra and Ambassador Amrani. There is no doubt in my mind West Africa could be an agricultural and industrial producer exporting to Europe. Just like Morocco now exports fruits and vegetables to Europe, and the two most popular selling cars in Europe are manufactured in Morocco. Even their Chinese parts are manufactured in Morocco. This vision could be Africa, West Africa wide. There's no doubt what they say. But one of the things you have to start where these countries are at. And one key concept I didn't hear or wasn't emphasized is resilience. And this is, I think, where you have to start, right? Côte d'Ivoire has hydropower. It has a drought. It shuts off its electricity exports to Mali. Mali then has problems. It doesn't export food to Niger. Niger has a food crisis. 54% of all children are in severe food insecurity. We know Nigeria has a food crisis. So what we're talking about is energy, critical raw materials, which require energy, agriculture, which requires energy, water, which requires energy for desalination. Remember, Morocco's building the largest desalination plant on the African continent, powered by renewable energy. I was just in Rabat recently, Casablanca, that's where it's being built. Morocco is the leader to expand this and should be a partner, and I'm certainly an advocate that Washington should be a partner with Morocco. But I think a key here is to say, well, Morocco can engage in this promoting this regional resilience of these systems, because We have crisis. You talk about AI. We're not even up to the amount of air conditioning, the amount of electricity that you would need to be able to power the data centers for AI. I mean, it's all very nice, but you have to know how things work and start with the basics. And this plan has those fundamentals. And I think what it first does will prevent crisis and allow people enough respite in West Africa, enough food, enough spare electricity to then build industries that employ Africans, create GDP in Africa, and export their products to Europe.
Thank you very much, Professor. We have another question here, but can I see, show of hands, those of you who want to be engaged in the conversation? Okay, great. We'll try to get it to as many of you as we can. So we encourage everyone who's speaking to please keep your comments a little bit short.
Thank you very much. My name is Ali Ben Yahya, doctorant, je vais faire en français, doctorant en économie.
Switch to French. I'm a PhD student in energy savings. When we speak to this energy, we're speaking to this center of gravity that will tend towards the Atlantic, and this all requires energy. And my question is for Madame Ben Khadra. Is it anticipated or expected for the implementation of this initiative to fuel, this demand for energy for our power-producing sectors? If so, to which extent are we indeed ready to absorb this demand? Is this an opportunity as well to accelerate our energy ambition? Thank you.
Do you want to?
As you like.
Sure, absolutely.
Oui, on convient bien que l'énergie vraiment est.
Energy is the driver for growth, and Morocco, as a country, does have a clear ambition to develop its energy sector, notably access to gas. There's also issues pertaining to energy efficiency, regional integration, both towards the north and the south, as well as the integration with other sub-Saharan countries. We do have an expertise in this sector. We have developed this as part of public-private partnerships, and we truly have all of the assets and ingredients to also be a leading player in the region. The projects that we are developing, thanks to His Majesty's enlightened vision, are integration projects. For instance, many countries involved in the pipeline do not have access to energy. As such, there are two development thrusts. There's the gas pipeline that will deliver gas, which is a source of energy considered to be a sustainable source of energy for these countries. But there are also many bilateral projects that are developed with many African countries for off-grid solutions, because it is only these transborder projects. We also need projects in cities and villages, and so smaller scale solutions using solar energy are also important. So we're also working on smaller scale projects and also at the national level, and transborder projects at the regional level. So it's this synergy of and blend of projects of a smaller and larger size that will be the driver of that will enable the development of this sector and create a power sector, but also an integrated gas sector that will serve to develop the various sectors concerned, because all sectors will require energy, be it extractive industries, in agriculture, housing. So it is truly at the service of development and all across the board.
Bonjour, c'est Fadwa Ammari, je suis docteur et chercheuse en relations internationales.
In international relations, I also would like to share some insights and an idea on the initiatives that have been undertaken with countries in the Sahel in the past. There are about 16 initiatives of the likes, and the reason why I'm speaking to these former initiatives is to bring them in tune with the royal initiatives. The good news is that among these 16 initiatives, the initiatives that were promoted by African institutions were in fact the most relevant. For instance, the African Union strategy for Saharan countries, as well as the the AFDB project as well, which were all realistic projects because they were indeed devised and developed by Africa, which circles us back to the expression of African solutions for African problems. The question I'd like to ask, but the bad news, however, is that they were all, unfortunately bound to fail. So I don't want to be pessimistic by any means, but this also circles back to the idea shared by Mr. Basu. So to avoid this competition between the different stakeholders, wouldn't it be more relevant to have these initiatives developed with other partners? Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to address that question? Any?
I can say only that you can trust Morocco and trust His Majesty. We know where we are going, the tools, and we are going steadily with not a lot of communication, and we are working with all the partners in the region in order to secure this Sahel. We are not only working on economic and linking, we are also working on other issues, how to deconstruct the jihadist narrative, for example, where some other countries have failed. We have our own way to do things steadily with not too much communication. But you can trust us. We are working with the Africans, with our brothers and sisters in the region, because we have a historical relation with these countries, thanks to the links between the region and the kingdom, but also the spiritual, I don't want to say religious, but spiritual links that link us with this country. And we are the only country in the region that has this capacity in deconstructing the jihadist narrative. Okay.
Thank you, Ambassador. Question?
Mohamed Zainabi, je suis rédacteur en chef de l'Observatoire.
Mohamed Zihadi, I'm the editor-in-chief of Power of Africa and other publications as well. I would like to connect all of these connecting projects with what's happening in the rest of the world. As a Moroccan, as an African, as the North African, I am truly proud to see my country offering the world a counterexample of what is taking place in other regions of our planet. For instance, when you see this fear is stemming from all over. When we see Europe, for instance, that's continuing to propose this vision of wishing to produce destruction to ulteriorly constructing, but Morocco is proposing this construction as an alternative, is proposing peace rather than war, even when it is triggered or provoked by a neighbor, which unfortunately will hopefully come back to reason, and also is playing this connector's role in many respects. Even politically, we can see that there are many events, and this is nothing new. The COP in Morocco, the COP 22 that was held in Marrakesh in 2016, infrastructure projects that also create that connection. There's also the sports as well, which plays the role of a vector. And so this is what it's all about. And I think that we need to further emphasize this connection that Morocco provides with regard to the geostrategic issues, especially in light of the burning and painful reality that we are faced with today.
No, there's no question. He make a comment.
It's a comment.
Okay. Let's since we've got a lot of questions, let's take like 3 questions. There's a woman back here who wanted to, and then we'll take. Let's see. There's a gentleman back here. He's had his hand up for a minute, so we'll get to you as well. And you had a question? If you can.
Yes. Thank you. My name is Jessica Coleman. I work in climate finance on the investing side. I'm American, and I happen to live in Niamey, Niger. So interesting perspective on your conversation. I've heard 2 things today. I've heard conversation about Morocco as a connector and these grand infrastructure investments in this pipeline as well as this port connecting the Sahel with the rest of Africa and Europe. And I've also heard that Morocco expects to see and hopes to see greater involvement from the US, from Europe. Of course, when you're talking about projects of this size and this scale, there are both companies in Europe and in the US that can offer funds, that can offer technology and resources. But then when we're looking at the beneficiaries of these projects in the Sahel, and you're looking at Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, l'Alliance des États du Sahel. These are countries that have broadly and sometimes violently rejected France, and where there's also still strong anti-American sentiment. And so my question is, to what extent does Morocco see itself in a position to perhaps act as a mediator or an enabler of those relationships, be they government or business, for these types of projects?
Terrific thing. If you could hold the answer, there's another, we can get a comment or a question. Okay. And again, if you can keep your comments or questions short.
Yes, I will be short. Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. I'm Gilles Yabi, founder of West African Citizen Think Tank based in Dakar, Senegal. I'll be speaking in French to Moroccan panelists.
I have a question. The first one was asked by Mr. Bassou on the competition with the ports in Western Africa, but there's also a political dimension in light of the current situation in the region. So you are well aware that ECOWAS is struggling with the withdrawal of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso from the organization, which should be enshrined at the end of January 2025. So is there any conversation with the heavyweight in ECOWAS, which is Nigeria, stating that given Morocco, through its initiative, is providing political support to this alliance of Sahelian states, to these three states that have decided to leave this regional organization, which is a difficult situation, and I mean, in the region. So I must say that we're always impressed when we visit Morocco, when we see the great strides and leapfrogs in terms of progress and infrastructure, and which begs the question on the magic recipe as far as financing goes that could be replicated in other countries, because I must say that we are truly impressed by the mobilization of funds and resources for these large infrastructure projects such as ports and whatnot. Hello, my name is Asdin, and I'm a professor of international relations from Morocco. And I would like to insist on the visionary and forward-looking approach of His Majesty, which aims to give this interesting dimension to this South Atlantic vision, because it's true that we have the North Atlantic, which is based on the North America and Europe connection, but in the South Atlantic, it is through this initiative that there will actually be a certain geostrategic meaning. A question I'd like to ask to the Honorable Ambassador: we do know that Africa is marked by, this regional integration with ECOWAS, with the Waimu region. So it's a sort of it's an upward integration dynamic. So how should or could this royal initiative pave the way, and how could it impose itself in this fragmented or fractioned space as far as integration goes?
More question, actually, because then we can wrap up with questions.
Yeah, this is a bad angle for...
I know.
Anyway, Rabia Muhtar, Policy Center for the New South Texas A&M University. Over the last couple of years, there has been an erosion of the global partnership and the trust between North and South. How do you see this impacting moving forward in a partnership, in a global coordination, especially in the context of the plan that was presented earlier?
Okay, great. Okay, who wants to take any of those questions?
You want to take? Huh? Okay, go.
Yeah. Do you want to Did you want to hand up? Did you want to ask a question?
I think there are a lot of questions. Anyway,
many.
Just take one.
Yeah.
And anyone that you want to answer.
That will be for sure a challenge, but that is for sure a challenge. But I think what we are seeing at this moment, and when we are sharing common issues, common subjects that look for the Atlantic countries as a common risk and threat, will have for sure an increase of this cooperation. And it's my point of view. I cannot realize that a country, a region, alone will address that. So we need for sure an increase of cooperation. And that I'm quite sure that will increase in the near future. And it will be a challenge, yes. A lot of space for improvement, yes. But I think we will achieve that, for sure.
Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, 1 minute.
I think I will try to respond to these 2 or 3 questions with the following answer. Let me say first that for Morocco, Africa is a priority in foreign policy. When we integrated and when we created the African Union first, we always were giving priority in our foreign policy to Africa, as far as peace and security, participation in peacekeeping forces, and also in the economic development. We are one of the major investing countries in Africa, second after South Africa for the whole continent, transport, wild air market, and so on. So we are committed because we feel that this is it is a clear and pragmatic approach to deal with these initiatives. So our action is towards Africa, towards stability, to create, in fact, a prosperous and audacious Africa through job creation, stability, and security. So for us, it is a priority. Now, when it comes to regional integration schemes, it is also a priority. And it is through this project, through this kind of investment, then we can promote regional coherent integration schemes. Unfortunately, they don't exist today. The best one was the ECOWAS. No. ECOWAS was the best 10 years ago. But today it is in difficulty. I'm not going to talk about the Union of the Maghreb because this is something, it's a big loss and gashi. So for us, we will continue to do so because we have a clear vision from His Majesty. And this wide initiative for the Atlantic comes within this action we are doing in Africa. Because we believe in Africa possibilities. And we have some succeeded. I mean, not when we say we, the Moroccan private sector is very much involved in Africa today. In telecommunication, in energy, in water management, and also a lot of Moroccans professionals are working in Africa. We made it very clear since the beginning that Africa is our priority in foreign policy, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Really. I think you wanted to get in. We have about a minute because then we have one more vote that the audience needs to take. So if we can...
Oui, je ferai un commentaire sur les problématiques de...
I will make a comment on financing questions and issues. I'd say over and above the visionary, integrating and political character and the willingness and the will to contribute to the development of our continent. Over and above all this, when you take the projects, if you look into them, they are achievable. We're not deficit showing. If I take the case of Africa Atlantic pipeline, $25 billion. It will be part of a project finance project. It is broken down in phases with profitability, capex, opex, transport that showcases its competitiveness. Hence, they would be presented or tabled for financing to all IFIs with open partnerships, be they sovereign funds, bilateral, multilateral bank institutions, and the majors, all kinds of companies that will certainly find interest therein. And it is within the framework of this partnership relationship that the project will be financeable. They will be financeable, which is also the case for structuring projects that which are part and enshrined in the Atlantic Ship because they are international trade-oriented projects for the production of commodities. So these are projects which in themselves are going to be financeable and profitable to a certain degree. So the financing is not a complexity because the projects are finally studied to be executable. And then as far as the ECOWAS, within the framework of the Nigeria-Morocco pipeline, we are doing extraordinary, sterling work because a project with 13 plus 3 countries, 16 countries, ever since the beginning of the project, we've included ECOWAS in our activities from the very first feasibility study to showcase their involvement in this project, and in such a way as for them, the ECOWAS play a role in order to convene all the countries around the table, and we've made considerable strides in this respect with the feasibility, pre-feasibility, detailed engineering projects, the protocol agreements signing with the 13 countries with the preparation of an intergovernmental project that was finalized and validated by the ministers of ECOWAS. On some projects that have or assume important and significant character for the security, the safety, and the development of the region, I think we can overcome the political problems that on some areas, of course, structural or not structural, ephemeral on some countries. Merci, Amina.
We've spent the last hour and a half or so talking about the initiative. I want to get a sense from you, and you'll see the question up. How much do you understand the initiative better now than you did before? We should be getting the question should be posted shortly. And I apologize to those of you that we weren't able to get to. I know I'm really happy to see the energy on the part of so many of you who wanted to get engaged in the conversation. And the great thing about it is that this is only the first plenary. There will be many more to come, and it'll give you an opportunity to have your voices heard over the next few days. So let's see. So I guess our panelists have done their job, and it seems that they did a good job in explaining. Please join me in thanking them for participating. Thank you all very, very much.
It's a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you
very
then.
much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Under the high patronage of His Majesty King Mohammed VI, the Policy Center for the New South is organizing the 13th edition of the Atlantic Dialogues Conference, scheduled to take place from December 12th to 14th, 2024, in Rabat, Morocco. This flagship event will convene over 400 distinguished leaders from the public and private sectors, civil society, international organizations,